Afternoon, guys. Afternoon, Ifran. Afternoon, Royston. Hope you're both well. Going to go over a few charts of interest. Just had some CAD data drop, so just taking a look at dollar CAD because I was looking to see how price reacted in this sort of 134 up to 134 sort of 30 range. Wanted to see price try and stay above this for potential long opportunities up to 136. So the data hasn't actually dropped as I thought it would. So whether we get a reaction here is going to be interesting. Whether I wait for the daily close now. What I don't want to see is obviously this turn into a bearish candlestick and kind of close within this 134.25 range. That to me would be fairly negative, and I think price would probably try and trade lower off the back of that. I don't really want to see that at the moment. Obviously, we've traded through yesterday's highs, Monday's highs, so there is a good chance that maybe we are going to see a continuation to the upside here. But that's what I'm trying to work out at the moment. Dollar CAD is one of the only sort of markets that I'm really invested in at this moment in time. I also did like Euro Yen, Dollar Yen as well, and potentially a gold opportunity. So we will go talk about those today. I'm also obviously going to go through the strength meter, but let's just quickly jump onto the data that has dropped in for CAD and what this could potentially mean. Hi, Vincent. I'm doing well, thank you. Hope you are too. But yes, CPI month on month was forecast to come in a little bit lower. It did come in lower, which was absolutely great. Let me just zoom in a little bit so you can see that. Let me change the view actually in here. Okay, so we can see that obviously it came in at the expected forecast at minus 0.3%. So no real shock in that type of data there for the CPI month on month. The sort of shocks really have come into the fact that CPI year on year, median and trimmed, has increased. So the previous was 3.6. Well, actually, that was revised up. That was so that was revised from 3.4% up to 3.6. We've got that same reading again, which was expected to obviously fall. Same with the trimmed CPI, that was expected to fall, but that has come in a little bit higher as well. Common CPI year on year has also climbed. That is almost going against the sort of, I guess, what we're seeing at the moment in rhetoric of the central banks is the idea that we're going to get rate cuts this year. And like I said, in pretty much every live stream so far, every video that I've done, is that we don't typically see central banks cut unless there's a sort of serious problem in the markets. Now, CAD, obviously, we've seen this kind of increase in CPI here, not necessarily month on month, but for year on year. So there might be a little bit of doubt in the mind of whether the Bank of Canada, which were almost forecast to be one of the first sort of central banks to cut rates, that might put doubt in investors' minds that that isn't going to happen at this current moment in time. So that's probably a situation there that could potentially develop over the sort of coming weeks, but that'll be something of interest to note. There was a situation as well that hasn't really been reported too much, where we saw in Canada what they call the sort of repo market, where the central bank is basically borrowing lots of money at the moment, which they haven't done for a very, very long time. So there could be something developing with the Canadian dollar at the moment. I will probably do a different video on that as well coming up. But at the moment, dollar CAD, we like the idea that price is trading within this overall range. Like I said, ranging markets can be easier to trade, especially because they have very clear defined support and resistance levels. We came down into that sort of 132 handle. We've rejected. We're on that way up now. We are kind of testing the lows of this sort of pause. If I was going to look at it from a weekly chart, we are kind of testing the low of that area. So if you were looking at it from a weekly and you saw a daily lower close, that could obviously mean that price may want to trade a little bit lower. I like the idea of buying dollars at the moment, though. So what I'm kind of looking for is if we can trade through this sort of resistance, this minor resistance at 134.25, will that bring us up to sort of the next volume level? So if we just take a look at volumes from the high to the low, we can see that there was obviously volumes being built down here as well. So if I actually just move this over a little bit, if I can grab the bottom of it, let's just give it the full beans there. We can obviously see there is lower volume, high volume, low volume, again low volume, high volume, low volume, high volume. And like I said, these areas of sort of volume in here can be little areas of support and resistance. So when price was below here, that would have been a resistance level. When price breaks through that resistance, our trader is going to be looking to go to the next area of volume, which is up towards this area here, which is that sort of 136 area, which is something that I like the idea of for dollar CAD. I like the idea of price holding in this low volume area, maybe holding above that price. If it does, can it then trade up to that sort of next pocket of volume, essentially? That's what I'm looking at here from a sort of volume profile point of view. Can we stay above this period of volume, and can we get higher? Now, one thing I am looking at is the lower time frame. So we'll just go down to the 4-hour time frame. Let me just take the session breaks off here, and let me just turn off the averages here. Let me turn this down to hourly, and let's turn that down to hourly as well. Okay, let's just bring back the volume profile. So looking at it in terms of sort of trend here, and the fact that price has obviously broken through this area here, I was looking to see how price would react. So we've breached, that news has come out, price has dropped. We're now sort of looking at the potential trend support opportunity. Now, trend support to me is if the market is making higher highs and higher lows, the previous breakout high can act as support for price. Okay. Now, the reason why I'm calling that trend support, even though we're trading in a sort of higher time frame range, is because lower time frames will create trend within that zone. Okay. So, you know, we know that if price is in an upward trend, and let's say this is the sort of 4-hour time frame, on an hourly or a 30-minute time frame, you're going to get a trend within that. Okay, like this. So that's why I'm talking about that. You've got consolidation, breakout. The market is then trying to make sort of higher highs, higher lows. We've broken. Are we going to start finding support in and around this area? And are we going to start trading up towards that 136 handle? So that's what I'm kind of looking at right now. Price is pulling back. If I look at the hourly chart, I don't have a reason to get involved with the market. Again, like I said before, I like to look at a two-step process. We've got the crossover of the 50 and the 200 here. The market is obviously staying above that at the moment, which is great. But there's nothing for me here just yet. What I want to see is, can price kind of slow down here? Can it consolidate here? Which would be great, because a slowdown in that bearish price action would suggest to me that maybe some buyers are stepping back in. So if we can do that, if price can maybe catch up with the 50 MA here, give me a nice strong higher high, higher close candle, then I think that's a good idea for a potential long on dollar CAD. So I am just kind of watching this area. My alerts already have gone off, so now I would be watching dollar CAD on sort of an hour by hour basis now, looking to see if we can get any kind of swing opportunities in there. So that's the first one I wanted to kind of take note of. Obviously, we can go back up and have a little look at how the dollar index is playing out. Last week, we were very much capped at the sort of 102 spot 50 levels as well. And again, this is another good reason why I think the dollar could continue higher. Obviously, the dollar index is just a basket of currencies weighted against the US dollar. So it's not necessarily telling us that the dollar is going to get sort of stronger. It's just that that basket of currencies is weaker than the US dollar at the moment. And we had the consolidation last week. This is something I pointed out in the week ahead analysis video as well. And what I wanted to see is a sort of break of this zone. We've had it now. We're breaking out of that 102.75 high. So again, it's just having a little bit of patience here. Can we get the close above? The close is going to be so important to us here. I think if we get this close as is, then going into Wednesday's trading, there's going to be definitely some opportunities. If we can get some pullbacks in the Asia session, maybe, then we could look for the continuation. I quite like the idea of the dollar index heading towards sort of 103.50 and up to sort of the 104. Sorry, guys, I thought I was going to sneeze then. The 104s in here. So I still think there's a good little potential for a bit of expansion here for the US dollar. And that, again, kind of stems from looking at this sort of strength meter. I've just got the changes here instead of the currency strength meter. I don't know where I've actually put that. I was looking for it on my desktop and I can't seem to find it. Oh, here we go. That's why. I was looking at the strength meter and not currency strength meter, right? So we're just kind of open this up a little bit. Let's put the strength meter on here as well. So these changes here, right? The change, that's what's plotted on the currency strength meter, essentially, right? That's why I always show the sort of two together. Now, obviously, yen was something we were focusing on, and that has decreased quite aggressively. It's been a while since I've seen a currency sort of top out and then change so quickly, and now it's at the sort of -7 level. So again, so for me, yen would be a currency that I'm looking for short opportunities on / reversals. So I want to be short because the overall sort of picture for yen is weak. However, it is in a reversal zone. So there could be an opportunity where we start to see a little bit of strength coming back into the Japanese yen. Don't really see that just yet. When I'm looking at the charts, across the charts, the yen's still looking a little bit weaker. But we are coming into some key areas of support and resistance. The Swiss franc is currently one of the strongest currencies, and we haven't really seen a change from last week. So that could be a sign that the strength of the Swiss franc could be slowing slightly. But again, I would like to see that sort of dip back in here in order to be sort of potentially confirmed for the reversal for Swiss franc. And then obviously we've got the dollar. The dollar still sort of in the minuses zones. We've come from -6 up to -5. So we have slightly been on an upward sort of turn here for the US dollar at the moment. So that's why I'm kind of looking to see, is this dollar strength back? Are we getting that reversal in the dollar weakness? And is that dollar strength coming back? Looking at the dollar index, I'd say it's becoming more confirmed now because we were in this sort of downward trend picture. We've then kind of formed a head and shoulders pattern, essentially, consolidation, and now we're breaking higher. So maybe the dollar index is heading up towards these two key resistance, which could be opportunistic for us across some of those major currency pairs, especially, like I said, dollar CAD. I do quite like the look of dollar CAD at the moment. CPI data is a little bit disappointing. I was hoping for a bit of a miss there to kind of give us that little bit more of a idea that CAD could weaken. But if we go look across the board now, we're starting to see a few changes. So Euro US dollar, for instance, was talking about price kind of holding at this 1.1 range in here. And we were looking again, are we going to see a breakout either direction? I did favor the downside a little bit, euro dollar. I have had some short trades on euro dollar last week. Haven't actually traded anything this week so far, so I've actually been flat this week, so no sort of trades on the table. I'm just kind of watching to see how things play out because we are obviously in a little bit of a range. But I think if we do get a sort of strong close outside of this level, then it could be an idea that the potential for euro dollar is for a move back towards the 1.075 levels. We do obviously have European CPI coming out tomorrow. So if that comes in lower as well, that could drive the euro prices downwards a little bit. If we see it move higher, again, it's kind of the expectations of rate cuts at the moment. You know, if inflation level starts picking up, the idea that the central banks are going to cut rates is going to, the probability is going to come in a little bit lower. So that's the kind of game the market is playing at the moment. are the sort of central banks bluffing essentially, and are they saying these things to try and stabilize the market in any way, shape or form? Okay, you know, we're seeing stocks going to all-time highs again and things. So especially euro dollar here, you know, nice break here could signal a bit more downside, but again, I'm going to wait to see how that daily chart plays out. You know, if we get that sort of close here, it could obviously be a good sign. If we close back within the range, then maybe the price is just going to remain in that range, you know, and we have to look at both possibilities there. We are breaking through trend line support as well. This trend line formed back on the 1st of November, is tested on the 8th of December and was also tested on the 5th of January. So that is also something to consider. So a very clear trend line there that has been breached to the downside as well. So we'll see if price can come back down towards this 1.0760 area as well. Now we know we do have Bank of England coming up as well, so maybe there's going to be a little bit of volatility for that. Royston, yeah, more red flag news for the US dollar daily this week. Yeah, absolutely. There's quite a lot of data actually coming out, which is super important to us, especially retail sales, as well as the unemployment claims coming out towards the end of the week as well. So that's going to be interesting. And we also have some China data, which I think is going to be pretty important as well. So China industrial production coming out tomorrow. Are we going to see a little bit of an uptick in the industrial production? Because at the moment, growth in China hasn't been great. So whether the dollar is going to get stronger off the back of something like that, then we'll see how that China data can sort of influence the market going forward. Going on to cable then. So cable's very much sort of been held up at this 128 level, this 128 zone. Very much, again, another range bound sort of market here. We've tried to sort of come down towards the low of this, I'd say daily to 4 hour range. It's probably a little bit more clearer on the 4 hour time frame. If I just zoom out a little bit, you can see this kind of clear level of support down here towards the 126.50s. And yeah, we haven't really breached that level yet. So I'll be interested to see how cable reacts at this point. Do we start seeing a little bit of buying coming back in? We did get a hourly higher high, higher close candle here, which for those traders that trade ranges, then that would have been an ideal sort of level to look at. But yeah, I quite like dollar strength at the moment. So would I be looking to get necessarily long on cable yet? Probably not. I'd be looking at sort of, if we breach 126, where's the next level of interest? And it's down towards the 125s at that point. So breach on cable towards the lows would be interesting for me. But yeah, not really. Cable's not really on my list to get involved with. Aussie US dollar, really interesting. Obviously, we were short Aussie dollar a couple of weeks ago. 5th of January, 4th of January, I was short Aussie US dollar. We've come out of that now, but prices obviously continue to push lower. Again, you know, you can see the market is pushing lower. It's pushing lower. It then consolidates between sort of 2 points in here. And then we've now breached that area. So looking to see, can we get a little bit of a pullback on Aussie maybe? And then a continuation down to this supporting area, down towards the 66.50. Now, if we look at the daily chart on Aussie US dollar, very strong bearish move. Again, this is going to be affected by that industrial production data coming out of China. So what if that misses, right? What if that China data misses? Then we could see a move down towards that 65.50. If we see a big jump in the industrial production, maybe we'll see sort of a climb back above. But at the moment, that daily close is looking quite appealing to me in terms of sort of looking for trades and opportunities into the next day, because that is how I base my process on. You know, we've come into support. The daily market is kind of holding here. Didn't trade yesterday, haven't traded today, just waiting to see what happens. That daily close in kind of an open area there would be interesting to me. I'll be looking to see if that can hold like that. And if it does start to pull back in the Asia session, can that give me opportunities within the European, maybe even the US session, to look for opportunities down into this supporting zone? Again, think in terms of volume. Where is the volume in the market? Obviously, volumes are favoring lower prices, but we had volume developing there. We've broke out of that now. Where's that sort of volume picture? You know, it's down towards these swing lows in here. So yeah, I like Aussie US dollar downside as well, to be honest, just from a purely sort of technical point of view. If I was to bring back in the currency strength meter, the Australian dollar is kind of hovering up as a sort of stronger currency at this moment, but I don't really see that reflected in the charts. Same with Kiwi. I haven't looked at Kiwi in a while, to be honest. Ever since we kind of breached that high, I was expecting a move up towards this level, but if you go onto the weekly time frame and you open it up down to the wick and the candle body on the weekly time frame, you see we came very, very close to testing that level before seeing a decline. So again, if I'm looking at it from this weekly point of view, where would I expect price to come into? I always look at kind of swing lows and whatnot. So that to me, around about the 6100 level makes sense. So yeah, again, I'll just be watching that daily chart. We've broken out of the consolidation here. Can it give us an opportunity to look for a bit of a pullback? 4 hour time frame as well. Look at that range. Look at that range breakout in here. Price comes back in towards this high around about 6200. I'll be looking for ideas around that point. Maybe some kind of hourly move, pull back in. Can I get an hourly lower close? Can that be a result of a bit of a move to the downside? So Aussie US dollar, New Zealand US dollar at the moment looking fairly good. I'm just going to add them to my list, actually. Not necessarily on my radar from a currency strength meter point of view, but from a technical basis, sometimes that's as you know, sometimes that's what you need. The markets from a currency strength meter point of view, I was looking at sort of a potential euro yen long idea. I'm just waiting to see if we get a bit of a pullback here. Now, euro yen from a weekly is a little bit because of the fact that we were starting to see a little bit of euro strength come back into the market. I also just liked it from a technical outlook here. Now, the weekly doesn't look as good as what I would like it to look like. Essentially, we had a new high and a new low form last week. But if we look at the candlestick close, it closed back within the previous candlestick range. Don't typically like that if I want to be long. Doesn't mean that it's not going to go long. It just, I feel like sometimes that can obviously be a bit of a hindrance. If I look left as well, you can argue that there's maybe a bit of a resistance around 159. I'm looking more to see, can I take advantage of yen weakness across currencies that look to be sort of breaking into new highs? And euro yen was one of those. So we see we kind of consolidated between sort of 158, 154.25. Last week we had sort of a move lower, a rally, and then a couple of downward days. So it was a bit of a sort of mixed week. But again, it kind of comes down. I'm looking at the sort of trend potential here with, you know, the previous high acting as resistance. Can that now act as support and price move to the upside? So if I was to kind of draw a line here where that break of high and then we've come back in, we've then had a bullish daily close. So again, just kind of looking at this going, okay, well, if we're going to see consecutive potential daily higher highs, higher lows here, could we come back towards the 161 spot 50? I've kind of put like a bit of a channel on here as well. That kind of coincides with that channel resistance in here, whether you believe in using channels or not. So yeah, I quite like the idea of looking at an opportunity here. I'm basically monitoring these lows here, and I can see that we've rallied, consolidated. You know me, I like consolidations. I think this is a good thing. You know, what if we break that and move higher? Could it give me an opportunity to be involved? Looking at the hourly chart, what I would like to see is some kind of higher close develop here. We're at the 50 MA. This is the zone that I've kind of pointed out. Now, it's a little bit of an aggressive zone because it comes down towards these kind of swing lows in here. But again, thinking in terms of volume, I feel like we've got low volume, higher volumes being developed. If we breach that and move higher, where's it going to go to? You know, we've got these highs to contend with. If it can breach through that, then for me, the 161's looking quite appealing for an opportunity. So I'm still waiting down through here, you know, waiting to see how does price react in this area. What I don't want to see, obviously, is price trade through this level. I think if we trade through this level, then the next sort of point of interest is going to be down towards the sort of 158.75s. Don't really want to see that if I'm going to be long. So looking at the market here, looking to see, can price kind of respond in this area? Are we getting a sort of slowdown at that point, and can we look for an opportunity? So 4 hour support, sorry. So because I'm looking at it from a 4 hour point of view, I'm going to look at my hourly for that higher high, higher close. If I get that on my hourly chart, then, you know, going to be looking for a potential opportunity here. Ideally, I'd like to see another sort of down candle, maybe followed by like a rejection of the downside and a sort of higher high, higher close candle. That would be my ideal. And then we can look for potential opportunities for price to go and sort of target these levels around about 160. And then I'll be looking to see if it gets to 160, how does price react then? Do we get an opportunity to see price break through, or are sellers involved? Because obviously I don't really want to get, you know, aggressive unless we breach that sort of 160 area on euro yen. So that's what I'm kind of watching on euro yen at the moment. The other market, obviously, I like dollar yen longs. We've been pretty bullish dollar yen for the past week or so. Again, very clear sort of defined moves coming from this market. We breached that 143.78. We retested as support, broke through again. 144.75 was support. And I like the idea of price coming up into this area. If you're actually in the VIP trading room, I put out a post about getting long at this 143.75. It was actually a YouTube video as well that I did. So yeah, that was my target, 146.25. So we've reached that now. Looking to see, can we trade through this level? Give me a nice close above. That would, to me, would signal that there's potential upside to come for dollar yen as well. So a few charts on my watch list, definitely. Like I said, I think dollar CAD has good opportunities to move to the upside if it can hold above this 134 area in here. That CPI data might put a little bit of doubt into that, so we've got to be a little bit careful. Euro yen alike, dollar yen alike. I also did like gold, but I'm not sure where gold's kind of trading at the moment. Obviously, if the dollar's going to get a little bit stronger, there could be an opportunity to be a bit on the short side of gold at the moment. I did like longs coming into play at 2019. But since then, I've been watching this resistance level in here. Support level down towards the $2,043 area. We've broken those now. So I'm looking to see, is this going to actually be a little bit of a level of resistance for some downside movement? So yeah, I do quite like the idea of gold short. But again, I might wait to see how the daily sort of plays out here in the short-term basis, because we've obviously tried to sort of breach $2,060 level, which was sort of these highs back in the 5th of January. We've failed. So are we going to come back down, maybe come and test these sort of daily lows again before seeing any kind of movement in gold? I do feel like gold prices could push higher over the next sort of few months. But we're going to have to wait and see. I think that maybe there's going to be a little bit more downside before we get that sort of upside move there. But we'll see how it reacts. If obviously the 4 hour time frame here at the moment is breached, if that 4 hour comes and closes like this, then that could be classed as a false breakout. And, you know, we could see a bit of a move up. But if the dollar's going to be a little bit stronger, or if it does continue to get stronger, then I would imagine gold prices could follow on a little bit from that. To check that gold strength out, we could look at the sort of US 10-year and the 2-year yields. Obviously, daily's looking a bit bullish here as well, trying to climb back up towards that 4.1%. I think a breach of 4.1% would be quite positive. 2 years as well did continue to sink, but we're starting to find a little bit of buying coming back into the 2-year yields. Let me have a little look at Bitcoin. I was fairly optimistic that Bitcoin could move higher recently after the sort of recent announcement of the ETFs. A lot of volume traded on Bitcoin recently, but those volumes have sort of faded as well as price. We kind of capped up at the highs towards the sort of 49k level. We've since sort of faded that level in here, but I still think that's a bit of positive news for Bitcoin. So I'm watching support levels, watching 42k, and I'm also watching 38k for potential opportunities here as well. Again, you don't necessarily need to own cryptos to take the advantage of those. You can also trade with a CFD to get the benefit of sort of the crypto volatility without necessarily having the risk of holding any cryptos in any wallets or anything like that. So something to potentially consider. Obviously, we were looking at some opportunities towards sort of Palladium, and that hasn't come to fruition at all. I was watching the weekly chart here. We are pulling back into a very sort of very decent support level towards sort of the 90-50 area. Haven't had anything coming back from that, so looking to see if there was any kind of opportunities there. But metals might have a bad time. Metals might have a bad time at the moment. Ifran indices are red, waiting for FTSE to get back to 7700 level for shorts. Alert didn't go off, was nearly there. Yeah, I did see FTSE was down at the moment. Yeah, FTSE and the Dow as well. I do like the idea of the Dow moving short. Let's have a little look at the FTSE. Yeah, here we go. FTSE. Yeah, so we were looking at this 70 sort of 765 areas resistance, and looking at the daily chart. This is the area I was talking about seeing a bit of a breakthrough from. That sort of 76.64. I have got an alert set myself around about 7600 because, again, this was the sort of consolidation area in here. And let me just change the color of that. This was the consolidation area. You can see the market has started to make that sort of trend. So I wanted to see how it reacted back up towards 7600. So I have got a alert on that zone in there. So if we did see any kind of opportunity sort of form, then, you know, I have got an alert set on that at the moment. But nothing's really changed here so far. I was waiting to see if there's any kind of pullback. But like I said, we haven't quite seen that pullback just yet, so maybe we might not get it today. It might come tomorrow. Again, we'll just see how the market can sort of, if it can play into our hands or not. I mean, yeah, it did hit the 7600 level, didn't it? I've kind of got an alert at 7606. If I was looking at 76 dead, it would have been alerted in that zone just through there. So maybe I'll delete this. Did get a lower close on the hourly. Let's go down the time frames. Let's have a little look. Potential trend there. I think if, you know, arguably if we get a lower close on a 15-minute on a break of that low, could signal the trend is going to continue at that point. I have to wait and see, I think, here. I did want to see a little bit more of a rally, but I know that we've kind of taken that low, but I was almost looking to see, can we come back into this fresh sort of low in there? I mean, again, arguably it has tested it. I'll have a little think about the FTSE. Have a little think about it. Royston on equity clock, the seasonality shows a bullish gold, food for thought. Yeah, definitely. You know, metals are typically bullish this time of year. I need to actually double check because I completely forgot to mention we're in an election year, and sometimes seasonals can differ on the fact that it is an election year. So Let's actually have a little look at equity clock again. I don't know whether it's got that information at hand. Pretty sure it does. Let's have a quick look. Go charts, gold futures. Enter to the S&P. Yeah, I'm actually. I'm pretty sure we go see. We go seasonals. Materials. Sorry, commodities. Here we go. Platinum futures, corn futures, palladium, copper, silver, soybean, gold. Let me see if I can Google that. Gold performance election year. Hi, right, guy. Yeah, all good. Thank you. Hope you're well too. We've just been going on about some opportunities, looking at potential shorts on the FTSE. You can see that lower low, lower close there. Starting to see a little bit of a continuation here on the FTSE there. You know, potential 15-minute close could be ideal there. We've seen a pullback into that 7,600. Like the idea of the FTSE moving a little bit lower at the moment. I would like to have seen a little bit of a pullback, just a little bit higher. So, you know, I might miss the boat there, just in case. Gold and presidential cycles. Let me just see. So gold average return. Gold average return in presidential elections. I'm guessing that's first quarter. It's usually quite low in the first quarter. Second quarter can be quite big. Post-elections actually usually pretty bad for gold. Oh, that's election year. So actually post is actually usually when it's pretty bad. The second year apparently in an election year is the best year for gold. And that's on gold price forecast. So yeah, gold seasonality. Again, I always say you got to take seasonality with a little bit of pinch of salt. You've got to understand where the market is at that point as well. Seasonality is an average of like 20 years. So I like to look for the tops and bottoms in that particular move. Gold obviously did suggest that it would have a bottom in January and move higher. But sometimes the situation can change. I mean, like I said, we're breaching that sort of 2040 area right now. To me, if the dollar's going to get stronger, gold could, you know, feel the sort of brunt of that. And we could see a bit of a continuation to the downside there. for gold. So we'll see what happens there. Like I said, I like the idea of dollar strength, especially because we've breached this area now and we're heading up to these resistance points. Would I want to be a gold long when we're here on the US dollar index? Absolutely. I'll be looking more at gold longs towards the dollar index being at a resistance point, and especially if it does reject that resistance point. Where's that gone? There we go. If it rejects this resistance, obviously dollar could move lower, gold could move higher, essentially. What was the other market? Yeah, dollar CAD. I like dollar CAD. Sorry, Raga, I missed your message there. What do you think about Euro Swiss to the downside? It's forming a lower low on the H1 chart and is currently in a downtrend on the daily chart. Let's have a look at Euro Swiss. Yeah, I can see it's in a downward trend here on the daily, making those lower lows, lower highs. Yeah, essentially I can see we've come into a bit of a sort of a top here. This would definitely be an area of interest, considering the fact that there's sort of low volume in there. So it's obviously held that. Look at the hourly. It's making a lower low. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, I don't think. Especially if we can hold that lower low. I think if we can get sort of a good sort of close out there, then you're essentially looking for the first sort of lower high to look at for Euro Swiss for potential continuations at that point. I don't see any problem with that particular move. I'd just be watching to see, can it make that true lower low? If it does, then great. If it holds and price pushes higher, then you may be looking to see how does it react back up here. What if you get a sort of head and shoulders pattern and then a continuation to the downside at that point? Maybe you can look at something there if you were to see a rejection at that point. So we've obviously gone in to try and test this lower volume area. Sellers have got involved again quite aggressively, push price lower. What you don't want to see, obviously, is price come back within this zone, because if it comes back within and holds within, then I think we're probably going to trade up towards this sort of pocket here. If it can hold below, great. Swiss franc is a strong currency at the moment. It's in a reversal zone, but it is a strong currency. If you want to wait for the daily close there, I don't think that's a bad idea. Can it close bearish? Can it then obviously filter into the next day's trade? And that can be something to watch as well. So, yeah, Euro Swiss looks good. So, yeah, for me, really, this week, I'm focusing, obviously, dollar yen. I like the idea of those markets moving higher. Euro yen, I'm kind of keeping my eye on euro yen as well. I did quite like the idea of pound yen again. So, I went long pound yen last week. We had a daily bullish close here. And again, I'm just kind of watching to see how price performs here. We're not really seeing much from it at the minute. Whether that's because we've got the CPI data coming up, so we're not really seeing it, or we've got Bank of England, obviously, Governor Bailey speaking in about 15 minutes. So the pound might be holding back on us until that's done with. So yeah, really, I like the idea of that yen weakness continuing. We will have to be a little bit careful though, because obviously stocks are falling at the moment. Dow is an interesting one to be sure, I think, at the moment, although we've obviously sprung into these kind of new fresh highs on the Dow at the moment. There was a heavy commitment to trade, a signal for a short on the Dow. So let me just see if that has actually reflected on bar charts. Let's see if I can get indices on here. Energies, indices, Dow. Yeah, have a look at this. So this is the Dow futures, and obviously you've got the commercials that are the red in here. Okay, let me just zoom this out. And obviously price has been aggressively moving higher on the stock markets, including the Dow. And obviously, we've reached that 38,000. Look at the short contracts in the commercials. Look at how that's dipped, right? The reason being is because the price is moving higher. So they're exiting their positions, essentially. Or the people that are in it for the business purposes are exiting, right? They're short in the market. Now, if you look at what I talk about in terms of extremes, that was the lowest low on the Dow contracts, which were here from a short side of things. And yeah, I think that's quite a significant point. I mean, we did obviously, this is a weekly chart, so for the next sort of 6 months or whatever, we still continued to kind of push higher. And then obviously we had the sort of big push that we saw back in 2022. So heavy short coming in here on the Dow at the moment on the commitment of traders. So whether that will follow through and we'll see a move, maybe we'll see a push back towards the sort of 36k level on the Dow as well. So yeah, that's something to consider. Big sells coming in on the stock markets at the moment, and we're seeing a little bit of a reflection here right now in price. I would like to see price breach this sort of 37.20 area. I think if it breaches that, it opens up a door down towards that 36,300. I'm being a little bit more cautious. When you sell stock markets, it can be a little bit, tricky because they tend to fall pretty fast when they do go. But then they can obviously recover over quite a long period of time. So yeah, I am watching this at the moment. I think that if we do breach, there could be a move down towards 36.25. That's why I've got my alert set towards that 37k area on the Dow. Kind of same with the sort of Nasdaq and the S&P 500. But like I said, I do quite like the FTSE. I wonder how the Nikkei is actually shaping up from a futures point of view from commitment of traders. Let's see if we can go back. Let's see if we can get the Nikkei on here. Got the Nasdaq, S&P, Dow. Doesn't look like we've got the Nikkei on here, unfortunately. So we haven't really got access to that. Let's have a look at the S&P 500. I mean, yeah, the shorts in the S&P 500 are nowhere near what it is on the Dow. So definitely just sort of looking at the Dow Jones potential there. Let's see what's going on gold. Potential rejection in here coming up. All right, then, guys, we've been running for about 50 minutes. So I'm going to leave it there. Like I said, just to kind of recap, definitely keep your eyes on sort of dollar CAD, euro, yen, dollar, yen, gold, Aussie dollar, New Zealand, US dollar. We've also looked at some stock markets as well, so you can have a little look at that. Commitment of trader reports as well. If you do want to check out the COT reports, then I will just drop this link into the chat box. This is absolutely free. Obviously, if you want more data, you've got to pay for things like that. But if you want to check that out, then feel free to do so. Just click on it and it will give you all the details of what you need to look for. There's also a commitment of trader report sort of notes down here that you need to look for as well. But remember, when you're looking at COT reports, you want to be looking at those extremes on the short and long contracts. So I will leave it there. Thank you for all your comments as usual. Thank you to Ifran, Royston, Vincent, Guy. Thank you for all your comments and questions as usual. I really appreciate it. I'll be back on Thursday and I will speak to you then. Cheers, guys.